Let's talk interest groups
Okay,
for a
sure,
minute, okay?
Sure.
Last semester, I was teaching parties and interest groups to my grad seminar, and I made an observation to them, and I'm just curious to hear what you think. I observed to them that in the study of parties, we probably have more information about parties and less theory than in an area of study in American politics. And in the study of interest groups, we have more theory, more rich theory, and less data than in any area. Why can't we get good information about interest groups?
Well, I think you can, but it's very labor intensive. There are so many groups, and they do so many different things that it's very difficult to really focus in on exactly how they accomplish their goals. And indeed, parties are visible. They want to win elections. Parties want to govern. Parties have pretty much transparent organizations. But you get to interest groups, some of them want to advertise what they're doing, but others, they're successful if you never know what they do. And so if you have a lobbyist, a legislator, or a lawyer lobbyist in D.C. who makes 3 phone calls and orders the course of legislation, the last thing he may want is to take any credit for it.
Let's talk about Tommy Boggs for a minute. It's maybe the quintessential guy who everyone knows who no one knows, right?
Sure.
So now, okay, Tommy Boggs, his mom and his dad were both congressmen.
Right.
You know, his sister's big on ABC, Cokie Roberts. Tommy Boggs is probably more successful and more influential than anybody else in his family, and no one knows who he is. What's he doing?
He's making money.
Okay.
I think that at the heart of lobbying and at the heart of a lot of politics, there are 3 incentives. I think you want to do well. I think by and large you want to do good, and I think you also want to have some fun. And so Tommy Boggs has done very well. My guess is that he would argue that he has lobbied for groups that he believes in, and that he's not just a gun for hire, but that he has done some real good. He's smart. He gets good policies, and from what I can see, he's had a hell of a ride. He's had a lot of fun, and I think that combination varies among lobbyists and legislator lobbyists or lawyer lobbyists, but it's almost always there. And I think what it means is that they can have very long careers. And so someone like Tommy Boggs, banks are originally on some connections, but beyond, he becomes an institution. And indeed, Tommy Boggs kind of invents a new style of lobbying that's more common now. And you have now thousands and thousands of, not necessarily Tommy Boggses, but a medium-level lobbyist, pretty well connected, is maybe making $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So when we think of lobbying, I think you do want to think about money. I do think you do want to think about, at the edges of, be skeptical. At the same time, you have people who are in the policy arena for a long time, by and large because their word is good, by and large because they don't dissemble too much. This idea that lobbyists never lie or never shade the truth is junk. Of course they shade the truth. They're making an argument. So they're operating in the world. And now I think one of the things about lobbyists is that they may not want to tell you exactly what they do, but they often crave legitimacy. So I'm surprised how easy it is sometimes to get an academic interview with a lobbyist, because they often really want to, if not tell you everything they did, be regarded as someone who is a legitimate part of the process.
Do you think that's because of a long-standing perception that they are at the edge of something distasteful? It's an undignified, dirty profession.
Sure. But I think that's...
So how do you overcome that?
Well, I think that lobbyists never do completely.
It always struck me as odd that interest groups get such a bad name when they are us.
Sure. Of course.
Why do interest groups get such a bad name?
I mean, that's the sort of the pogo notion.
Yeah.
We've met the enemy and it is us,
Yes.
or whatever. For one thing, the press is willing to play along, and politicians. I mean, I'm a pretty big Obama fan.
Right.
And I'm not that bad. McCain's okay, but both of them have these guys have been around the block,
Yeah.
and they talk about lobbyists as if they were lepers or something, when in fact,
Yeah.
both of them rely on lobbyists. They indirectly or directly for money,
Yeah.
because these are the people, and for advice,
Yeah.
because these are very smart people who know how the system works. They want to have advice
Yeah.
from these lobbyists, and Obama in particular, who by and large I really do admire. I'm very cynical about Obama's holier than thou attitude toward lobbyists, which I think is purely politically motivated. And if here's this University of Chicago law professor, you sit down and say, okay, maybe there's some Jack Abramoffs, whatever.
Yeah.
But most lobbyists,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? They're providing information. They are part of the process. He'd say, oh, sure they are. Again, I think the press plays a big role here, because they the way they address lobbyists is in many ways stereotypical. In many ways, it's the situation where there is an ethical violation or a question where and I use the term special interest,
Right.
in particular here, you've got a oil and gas company that gets a deal,
Right.
and an earmark or a sentence written into a tax law.
Yeah.
And they go, aha, this is the interest group universe
Right.
writ large. But in fact, there are consumer groups. There are groups that represent the poor, even though it may not be the poor who are the basis of the group. There is this great tradition dating back to the framers, Madison, of this understanding of a multiplicity of interests. And so I think one of the things that interest group scholars fight against continually is that this is protected. It's
Right.
protected by the Constitution. Freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of petition. That's lobbying.
Yeah.
And once presented that way to citizens, they go, oh, you mean that, the labor guys?
Yeah.
Oh, these terrible interest groups. Well, what about, your union fighting for different, better bargaining conditions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and on and on. So I think that it's kind of the reverse of freedom of speech. I think that freedom of speech that we think in general everybody supports it, but when you get down to the particulars, they question it.
Mm-hmm.
I think here that in general the idea of lobbying they're unhappy with, but you get to particulars. Oh, wait a minute. You mean my voice should be heard? Oh, that's not really lobbying. Well, of course it is.